How do I determine the value of the lease? I'm Tim Diesel, I'm a commercial real estate consultant. Today I'm doing a follow-up video for Johnny Ortiz, and I'm going to try to break down the lease valuation one more time. So we're going to make this very, very simple, and all I want to do is just focus on the lease, and then I'll break down all the other expenses or anything else in other videos. All right. So in this video, let's just say you have one tenant and you have an industrial building, and that one tenant pays $100,000 a year. All right. That's your NOI. That's everything. Let's not worry about anything else. That's right now, that's the number we're going to focus on. Now, let's say they're doing a 3-year lease. So the value of that lease would be $300,000. So if you were paying a broker to market the property and obtain another tenant, let's just say on that deal you're doing 10%. So you would have to pay $30,000 on that lease, right? Because they're going to get you another tenant rep, and they're going to work with somebody else on you and for you and everything like that. So that's very, very simple math, right? Every year you're getting paid $100,000. Let's not worry about anything else, no escalation, no expenses, property taxes, none of that. Just $100,000. So the value of the lease is $300,000. Now, let's say you're an investor and you're trying to buy the building. So if you're buying the building and you wanted a 10% return on your money, well, now that building is $1 million. See, that's a different valuation. We're looking at it from a totally different standpoint. Now we're getting into cap rates and we're getting into return of investment and all that other stuff. So what I was talking about is how do you value the lease? Now, if it was another property, and let's just suppose in this property you were getting $50,000. Kind of the same formula, right? If you're getting $50,000 for 4 years, now it's $200,000. So if you wanted to pay marketing fees or pay a broker to help you, and you were going to pay them 10%, you'd give them $20,000. You'd give them whatever the gross aggregated cost of the lease is, right? So that's separate. And what's happening, I didn't know it was that big of an issue until I started getting questions on it, is the lease is separate, right? There's no transfer of ownership when you're doing a lease. So you have an attorney draft up a contract, and whether it's 30, 40 pages, just the lease. That's a whole another animal before we get into the value of the property. It does help with the value of the property, right? Because that determines the cash flows and all that other stuff coming through. But if you were looking at, the minute you start looking at the return on investment and all this other stuff, and you're owning the building, now you're acting as an investor, and the lease value is kind of looked at differently. So the strength of the lease is important, right? How many more years left on the lease? That's valued differently. So whenever you're buying any kind of commercial property, with the exception of multifamily, because those are typically 1 year, the length of the lease are very, very important. So look at that as your barometer on how you're evaluating properties, right? So if you're buying something with a 15-year deal, value totally different than you're buying something with a 2-year deal. The property, not the lease. So the lease is different. Hopefully that was more helpful. If you guys have any more questions, I'm happy to help.